Hello everyone, welcome to this week's podcast, and to help me look back at a weekend of records for Red Bull, I'm joined by not one, but two pit lane reporters, Ted Kravitz and F1 journalist Claire Cottingham. Hello both.
Hi.
Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
Thanks for having us in your loft apartment.
Well,
does that open up to a nice view of Bermondsey and the River Thames?
Yes. Let's say yes. There's not.
It's always a warehouse kind of vibe that Matthew has. I should say, Claire and I are colleagues, as you say, in the pit lane, and colleagues from W Series, the first year of W Series we did together.
Yeah, we did. I haven't been able to get rid of you since.
No, I know. We might, which we might get onto later.
Yes, we will. We certainly will. And Ted, you have just come in direct from Canada.
Yes, I was out there, Matthew. They made me work on the Grand Prix. It was, tis my job. So, yes, just to explain slightly dishevelled experience. Sorry I didn't shave.
That's okay.
Yes, but straight in from Canada. And I must explain this rather unusually fashionable top that I'm wearing. This is, do you like it?
Yes, I do.
This is a designer T-shirt. It's got the whole thing on the back of it. That's not a mistake. That's meant to be there. Can you see it?
What is the shape? Do we know what the shape is?
It's a shape.
Oh, right.
It's just an antagonal shape.
Great.
And this was the present from the clothes shop from Zhou Guanyu, the great Zhou Guanyu shoot that we did that was shown at this week's Canadian Grand Prix coverage. I didn't come away with the Fred Flintstone outfit that he chose for me, but he did choose this for me. It's by Acronym.
Yeah.
Acronym, which... I'm sure you'll know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is a designer
Elite
brand.
designer brand.
Okay, good.
Yes, I was about to say that.
Explain the. That doesn't mean anything, does it? Mean that,
No. Oh, it's very nice. I'm sure worth an awful lot of money.
I would just say thank you very much to Zhou Guanyu and his kind generosity because he bought me a T-shirt.
Yeah,
he said he wanted to buy me the Fred Flintstone outfit, and I was like, "You're right, Joe.
Probably won't get that much
You're right with that.
I would have preferred that. I'm not going to lie.
Did you?
Yeah.
Didn't have any sleeves.
It's got an issue with your arms?
Well, clearly, have you seen the piece? With a terrible farmer's tan.
Of course,
and he didn't expect...
It's the pit lane tan.
Yeah, he didn't expect me not to be wearing a T-shirt underneath. But yeah, good weekend in Montreal.
Good weekend, yeah. Claire, how was your weekend?
Really good, thank you. I wasn't in Canada, but I was still at a motorsporting event, so you can't keep me away too long. But yeah, no, it was good. It was nice to watch it. Sometimes it's nice to watch it from afar and see exactly what's been happening. And yeah, it was a really exciting one to watch from afar for me.
Yeah. Before we get on to the race, actually, Ted, I just want to... Because when you came back from Australia, you gave me a Joey kangaroo.
Right.
And now I do know what...
You want your present?
Well, I do know that you've got a present. And part of me is slightly disappointed it's not a little cuddly toy marmot. After
That's true.
One of the great pieces of nature.
There were some. I was looking for a moose with a blue hat, but I could only find them with the Mounties hats. But you're right, Matthew. I do have a present for you.
Yeah.
I saw how big a moose was the other day.
They are. They're quite scary.
No.
Oh,
Where was the moose?
It was on Twitter.
Oh, right. That's where moose are.
That's where mooses live.
Yeah. The moose, plural of moose is moose.
Ah, there we
Matthew.
go.
Here you go. I've got you some Canadian crisps. Brilliant. And looking forward to the Hard Bite. Maybe we should rename this podcast Hard Bite. We take a hard bite look at the current issues in Formula One. But Canadian crisps.
Yeah.
How often do you see Canadian crisps?
In Canada, quite a lot.
Well, I suppose so, yes. And they're smoky barbecue flavour.
They look delicious.
But they are vegan, I think, Claire.
Do you know what? A lot of the meat-flavoured crisps are vegan.
Yeah. So many are. It's usually the cheese ones that aren't.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm looking at. They're great.
Good. Anyway, yes, there's your present from Canada.
Well, thank you very
Canadian
much. Not a cuddly marmot, but anyway, fine. Right, let's move on to our one-word race reviews. Claire, you go first.
Promising.
Oh.
Because I think we saw something really interesting, I think, over this whole race, and I'm sure we'll get into it a lot more, but with the upgrades, with the fact that Max wasn't the most dominant Max we've ever seen, it felt like we were, of course he was still going to win, but it felt like we were on for a bit of a fight, and having that second place as well being a real exciting battle between two fantastic, magical drivers. It just felt like it was the first race that I've been like, there's something that could happen here. And with a track like Canada as well, I know Max was out front laughing that he nearly knocked himself out on a curb, but
sort of evil cackle, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, but it just felt like finally we've had something. Some of the upgrades are starting to show something, and we're starting to see a bit more of an exciting prospect of a season.
I think promising's good. if not for the lead, then certainly for some more action.
Yes.
I did think of some other ones for you, Matthew. I thought Marmots, Mounties, Maple Syrup, Moose, Montreal, and some other M's. I did think briefly about unsportsmanlike, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Would be one word, would it?
I think it is. But I still go on quality. Sorry to repeat myself from the notebook. But there was just quality about the podium with the guys on it. There was quality about the racing between Fernando and Lewis. And that's the expectation, the prospect that we're going to see more of, hopefully, because that's great every time they go at it together. And as Mercedes edge towards Aston Martin, because they're not as quick, Aston Martin is still quicker, which I thought was interesting, we're going to see more of the Lewis against Fernando, and that is quality.
Yeah.
Fingers
Very
crossed.
exciting. I thought you put your hand up.
No,
but that
I was
a
fingers crossing. Yeah, I was just agreeing. I was like, no, absolutely. I want to see more of it.
I think so, yeah, for sure. I've actually gone for records because it was a big weekend for records for Red Bull and for Max. 100 wins now for Red Bull. 41 wins for Max, which now equals Ayrton Senna's amount of race wins in Formula One. And the record, which I kind of think got slightly overshadowed by the other two fairly incredible achievements for Red Bull and Max, was 200 wins for Adrian Newey this weekend, their chief technical officer. So records for me.
Yeah, I think you're falling for the classic records trap there, Matthew.
Go on.
Well, now that we have 805 races in a season, then you are going to get these records that tumble rather quicker than they used to.
And certainly on the race wins point with reliability now, the way it is, I think reliability means that actually if Ayrton Senna was racing in 2023, he would have finished more races. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah.
I would think, I think, Max sort of summed it up after the race, didn't he? He said, I don't want to look at the two different generations. I don't want to see what they did compared to what I did now because it's completely different. Formula One has completely changed. And you also have to remember, Max is only 25, so he's got this amazing 41 wins under his belt at such a young age. So that has to show that we've got something along the lines of reliability playing into it and the generation just being so different. If we hadn't moved forward with what we've seen in the past, we wouldn't have the safety standards we have now. So racing is completely different, I would say, from back then.
Yeah, Senna was, 35 when he died? And there were only 15, 16 races in a season. So,
Less chance.
I think Max was keen not to do the Senna analogy, wasn't he?
But I think Lewis does that as well. If you've ever asked Lewis about records, he's very much like, I don't look at records, I just focus on what's next.
Yeah.
Do you think, though...
So there you go, we trashed your records line. There you go.
Think of a different word.
Do you think, though, even though Max says he's not interested in records, do you think a little part of him, as he went to bed last night, put his little trophy in the next to him in bed, do you think a little part of him just went, oh...
He's going to have a big bed if he's got all of his trophies.
You would. Yeah, I think you would, wouldn't you? I'm trying to think whether Jos raced against Ayrton. I think 94, it was might have overlapped a season or so.
I
think it was a little...
Yeah, but I don't think he would have been actually competing with him in that sort of way.
He wasn't. So you've got to allow yourself.
Yeah, you're going to think about it, aren't you? Because Senna was one of the, the most famous faces in Formula One history. Of course you're going to think about it. But are you going to put everything onto it and think that then justifies your talent or gives you the validation that you need to prove that you're a good driver? Probably not. He's already got that on his own merit, I guess. So yeah, I think in that way he probably doesn't want to. He probably might not want to annoy fans as well by saying, yes, well, I'm as good as Ayrton Senna now. That's not a line that you want to kind of say. They're two different entities and two different greats.
Yeah. What about that podium yesterday? We had Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, and of course Max Verstappen. And Ted, what about the generations that were spanning there? Because obviously you've got Lewis and Fernando who are kind of, would you say, a generation sort of behind
in time, but
yes.
Max. Yes, definitely. But actually, what excited me most about that was not those three, nor the Mounties we saw around it, but the appearance of Adrian Newey. That made the podium for me. It was like, whoa, okay, right. Newey, who spanned Senna, through the Schumacher ears, fighting against Schumacher in a Ferrari, and then doing all the McLaren cars and Williams and through Hill and Villeneuve and, and then Vettel and all of that and see Verstappen. And I thought that gave me a little bit of a tingle.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think we also don't often see Lewis alongside Alonso and alongside Max. I think I heard a stat somewhere that it's only happened once in Qatar.
Really?
I'd have to look that up. That's not very good fact checking for me. But it was, how many world championships between them? 11? Did I do that maths right?
Yeah.
7? Yeah. 11 world championships in a race that felt like it ignited something new and exciting in this championship, which we haven't seen yet this season. It's been a bit of maybe a quieter start to the season than we've maybe hoped for. And it felt like there was a new fire lit under a lot of bellies. And to see then that be the final podium, for me, just felt really special.
I felt like we've had one of those three this year. But
I told you, I didn't fact it. I didn't fact check it.
I'd have to check.
Not enough.
No.
Should we say
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Not
Yeah,
enough.
exactly.
Because I remember doing the 11 line.
Oh, there you go. Oh, okay.
11.
Qatar, last year.
Maybe it was in qualifying. Oh, maybe. Anyway,
We'll
good.
fact check another day.
Okay, good.
People don't come here for the
Yeah.
facts. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. In the press conference, it was all very cordial between the three of them, and it was really interesting. They were all saying, there's a lot of respect between us, but. And I think one of the journalists in the press conference sort of alluded to this. If you had the three of them going for a championship, just how special that would be.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is just fantasy land in Matt's head. Could we ever get to a situation where we do see them race in say equal machinery in this finite period of time? Anne on Twitter would like this. Can we see Max, Alonso and Lewis in the same car for a race? Could we, in a 25 race season next year, have a little exhibition? 24 races and one exhibition.
Oh, you mean in these same
addition,
cars?
Yeah.
Well, no. But what we can hope for... Sorry, Anne. Nice idea, but good luck with that. What we can hope for is that Red Bull do take some penalty with aerodynamic testing restrictions, and that Aston Martin and Mercedes come up to their level for next year. And then we'll have different cars, but equal.
Yeah. There's going to be some sort of impact on losing out on that time with the penalty they received. We haven't seen it yet because obviously they've had such a strong start to the season. They've won every single race so far. But there has to be something that gives eventually. And I think, again, what I mean by promising is that it's been so exciting to see that, the upgrades that Mercedes had brought in Monaco, meant to be for Imola, and the ones that Aston Martin brought for Canada has shown that they are just edging that bit further. And if nothing else, yes, we're still not fighting for the win, but they're starting to fight with each other. And Mercedes are back in that fight. And Ferrari, it could have been circumstantial because we had a bit of a wild qualifying, but Ferrari, Aston Martin and Mercedes, they're going to start their own little battle. And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. The race for second is on.
I got goosebumps thinking about it. I know.
Well,
We'll take what we can.
Ferrari hope they will.
Well,
Yeah.
Yes.
It's possible that Aston and Mercedes could drop Ferrari.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It is.
Let's have a word on Max and his performance this weekend. And I want to go back to something you said after Australia when you gave me a Joey last time.
Little baby.
You-
Well, it was the kangaroo and it's Joey.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Hope you kept it alive.
Well, yeah. Didn't get to keep it. Anyway, let's move on.
It's for my kids.
You said after Australia, what was so great about Max's performance there was that he was able to kind of glide through the chaos serenely throughout that race, avoid all the red flags, all the nonsense that was happening behind him, and still win. And that made it super impressive. And I think not with the race this weekend, but with certainly what happened in qualifying, it didn't look in any doubt, did it? With the way Max performed, he seemed to everything that came at him with the weather. Ted, he just seemed to be able to deal with it and bat it away and perform well.
And that's why I said Red Bull are just gliding through life at the moment because everything is going fine. The only problem they have to worry about is Sergio Perez and, not a problem, but I'll get to it in a second, and where to hide that 100 wins flag that suddenly appeared at the front of Max's. I knew there'd be something. I knew it. And I sort of thought there's going to be a T-shirt, or Helmut Marko's going to appear in a hoodie, with 100 Grand Prix wins on it, or like someone's going to appear with a hat. And in the end, it was a flag. And I thought, all right, well, someone has gone to a shop and got that flag with, say, 100 Grand Prix wins made. What did they keep it in a sort of locked safe? Was it, lest Christian Horner should happen upon it? It's like, you don't tempt it. But they didn't have to worry about it, did they? It was always in hand. In qualifying and in the race, they're gliding through stuff at the moment. And when the only problem you've got is where to hide your celebratory flag before it's actually happened, and that Sergio Perez seems off the boil at the moment, it's actually not really a problem at all, is it? Because he's the perfect number 2 now. He's reverted back to the perfect number 2 for Max.
Yeah, I do. I feel like it is a problem, though.
What, Sergio?
Yes, because if he started 12th and he finished 6th. In any other drive or any other team, you'd be like, that's a good drive. That's an impressive drive. But the fact is, he shouldn't have qualified 12th. At all. Like, that should not be where a Red Bull is qualifying. He should not have got through to Q3 in a Red Bull. And I know the qualifying was all a bit over the place and the changing conditions and the rain came down and maybe he would have not set a lap or whatever it is anyway. But the fact is, he shouldn't have been qualifying P12 anyway. That's the main thing we need to take away from this. So they don't have no headaches at the moment. Yes, they've got one driver that's doing amazingly and looks like he's going to win the championship. But it's a team, as they always say to us, it's a team sport. And then so if one's not doing it, and for him, he needed confidence. He needed confidence this weekend. He didn't get it. It's not the best track to try and get your confidence back. He crashed out in qualifying, I think, last year in Canada. But to not even get into Q3, and I think that's a hat trick of not getting into Q3. He's had a couple of non-Q3 performances. That's a real headache.
In terms of not providing Max support in the races, or just for sort of his own equilibrium?
For his own confidence to support. He's got a fierce Fernando Alonso behind him. If he had a second Red Bull sitting behind him, making it as wide as Alex Albon did for the entirety of that race, he would have support. And also, they would have an easy wrap-up of the team's championship. Without that, they're going to really struggle. And they need it. They need the number 2 driver that you so rightly said he's slotted into now. But
is he not the perfect number 2 driver in this scenario this year?
Well, not if he's not being there for Max.
Yeah, but he's not causing Red Bull problems, is he? Unlike... Well, he's not causing Red Bull problems in the sense of, rifts in the team. All of that that we've had in the past with Red Bull, actually... They're just letting, and Max is able to just keep winning races and he's not being troubled by anything else. And actually, Red Bull this year probably will win the Constructors' title and probably will win the Drivers' title. And
by
if both
Max
of those,
exactly.
and if both of those happen, what more could you possibly want? There's no award for 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 in the races.
Yeah, but there is still that sort of, we're winning every race and we're second. You hear Red Bull 1-2 all the time.
The early rash of Checo challenging for the championship confidence of Miami and Baku has evaporated,
faded, hasn't it?
As the pollen descends and makes us sneeze.
In Miami,
he was fever line there. It has evaporated with the pollen.
I'm just going to move it on. In Miami, he was so defiant as well. Like, he was so confident coming into that race, and then to have it all taken away. And we have to remember he's won 2 races this season. It's not that he's a bad driver, but the confidence level has dropped. That will dip back up. Absolutely, he will pick up his confidence again. But I don't have full confidence myself in knowing when that's going to be, because he needs to find a track that's going to give him confidence. And Canada wasn't it.
Question from Krista on Instagram. I'm wondering when we'll all stop saying the 2 Red Bulls and start saying instead Max in a Red Bull. That car may be fast, but Max is in a league of his own. Does Sergio deserve the second Red Bull seat?
Ooh.
Yes, although Christian Horner was quick to praise Alex Albon, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was very quick.
So,
interesting.
I thought that was interesting in that Alex Albon has now severed all of his ties. He doesn't even have the Red Bull on the side of his helmet anymore, does he?
No, he lost that
from the start of this season. He still has the links with the Uvidia family, who are 51% owners of Red Bull. Alex does. In the stuff that he does, there's a couple of sponsors that he does, which is linked to the Uvidia family and their other brands that they have in Thailand. But Alex is not in the Red Bull camp anymore, and Alex Albon finishing 7th in a Williams, even though it was 20 seconds behind. Well, it wouldn't, but Checo made the extra pit stop behind Checo Perez in a Red Bull in 6th. wasn't lost on anybody.
And
At least it seems Christian Horner.
Yeah, and I think also you have to remember that we lost George Russell in that race. Would he have been in front of Sergio Perez if he had not hit his car into the wall? So actually, Sergio could have been 7th. So there's another. But does he deserve that seat? Of course, he deserves that seat. He fought hard for that seat, and he is a good driver. Let's not forget he's a good driver. He's just not as good as his teammate, and and nobody wants that. It's like the Lewis Hamilton next to Valtteri Bottas. Bottas isn't a bad driver, but he just would never be able to match what Lewis could do in that car. But he definitely deserves a seat. But it's a funny one, isn't it? That second seat next to Max, because it's such a revolving door. Before Sergio came in, you had Alex, you had Gasly, you had Daniel Ricciardo.
Are they going to get Alex Albon back?
Oh, it's a good old maybe.
Well,
maybe.
you just started the.
Point out that Christian Horner was quick to praise Alex Albon, even though he's not a Red Bull driver anymore.
Look, if we get to the summer and Sergio's form is still not where we think it should be, what do you think
where Red Bull think?
Sorry, where Red Bull think it should be. Yeah. Do you think they'd look elsewhere mid-season for a change? Do you think obviously we've got Ricciardo in the wings, we've got Albon. To be fair, Albon at Williams now seems very settled and seems like he's really growing and building that team, especially with James Vowles there now.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go back.
He doesn't want to go. Surely he doesn't want to go back.
No,
I mean, it's the Ricciardo is the obvious one.
Yeah.
If you're not ready to promote Liam Lawson, who's next in the Red Bull staircase of talent, they don't think Yuki Tsunoda or Nick de Vries are quite right for Red Bull Racing, which Helmut Marko and Christian Horner pretty much made clear.
Yeah.
Then give Daniel Ricciardo a go.
I mean, Sergio, he has a contract till 2024.
He does.
So there's
end of
2024. So in theory, absolutely not. They're not going to look at anyone else. Like you say, he is doing the number 2 driver thing. He's just not performing at the level they want him to be performing at. With the harmony in the team, it's very different. But how long, Checo's quite a fiery character. How long is he going to keep, his cool about his performance at the moment? And I think for them, they're quite lucky because it seems to be something to do with his confidence and his driving rather than the team making choices that's frustrating him that we've seen in the past. So I don't think they probably would be, I guess, quite foolish to look elsewhere when they've got such a solid driver in Sergio.
Yeah. And it's fine as it is. It's fine.
We all want Danny
They're
back.
They're gliding through the season. And if Checo's, if they're only worries that Checo's having a bit of a wobble, then they can deal with it.
Yeah. Now, Alonso was asked in the presser yesterday if he can beat Sergio Perez, and he just replied with a stern look, yes. He's now 9 points behind Sergio. And that could be a really interesting battle for second, couldn't it, in the championship, Fernando and Sergio?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
What were they expecting him to respond with, though?
I don't know.
He's like, no, I don't think I could.
It was. I agree with you. It was a funny question, but what was brilliant was his response and the manner of which it was. That it was actually quite a jovial press conference by all accounts. But that line was sort of like, I think Sergio will see that in his nightmares.
Maybe that brings us back to how much is driver, how much is car. That's another podcast. A separate podcast we'll do maybe at the end of the year, Matthew. Which is, I made a comment to Zhou Guanyu when we were doing our feature with him before Canada, was that in China, where it's, very sporting culture is all about winning. Look at the Olympics and how they develop athletes for the Olympic Games. Is it hard to make the Chinese watching public understand that there is a level at which the car dominates the driver performance in Formula One? And if you're in an Alfa Romeo Sauber, with the greatest respect for them, you won't be winning races, you won't be a winner, a Chinese winner in world sport because you're only in an Alfa, you know what I mean? You're in an Alfa Romeo Sauber and not a Red Bull. And he gave a very thoughtful answer about, yes, how that is the case. But if we're talking then that actually Fernando would seem that the driver has rather a lot of, maybe it's not 50% car, 50% driver, but if the margin is such that Checo is not delivering at Max's level, but he's still in a Red Bull, yet Fernando in a car that's demonstrably slower, the Aston Martin, not much, but demonstrably slower, can make that difference and finish above him, then that's what gives him the assuredness. But how good must Verstappen be? If Checo's good,
Yeah.
And then how much how good must Verstappen be?
How much
To
gooder?
be so far gooder.
Yeah.
It must be so far.
Yeah. Well, no, but it takes me back to the point I made before, to hark back to my own point. That's the thing, is it, and it's this age-old argument, isn't it? Is it the car, is it the driver? And with Red Bull, I think it's both, obviously, but how much more of it is Max? And I think it's probably significantly
quite a
more
bit
than we're
more than we
giving
thought, yeah.
than we're giving it
Yep.
credit for.
I think that's fair.
We were talking about how Red Bull was serenely gliding through the race and Max was. But there was one thing that could have caused problems for Max Verstappen, and that was a bird.
Oh, yes. We
A
found this
bird
out
in the
later.
brake duct.
Yeah.
Now, I want to know if a bird in a brake... How big a deal is a bird in a brake duct? I saw there's a photo on Twitter, which if you're not into animal things, maybe don't look at, is of the mechanic holding up the offending bird that was in the brake duct. And it's
poor bird.
quite a big bird.
They're seagulls, I think, aren't they? Because they're usually
Yeah.
seagulls around that area.
Okay.
It didn't look the colour of a seagull. It looked a
Well, it
little
did go through a car.
browner. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, give it a break.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry,
had a
sorry.
tough day.
I want to
what's your
understand.
question?
Yeah, so I want to understand how a bird going into a brake duct doesn't cause him to retire. Isn't an issue for him, or doesn't alter the performance of the car.
What was it? The wing? I mean, the bird's wing,
yeah.
not the front wing.
Well,
It was
yeah.
the whole bird.
Well, he said on the radio, didn't he? He said, "I think I've just hit a bird."
Yeah.
And I can't remember where it was in the
Right.
race, but he said, I've hit a bird." And then afterwards, he said in the interviews, yes, they pulled out part of a bird from the car.
Yeah.
Significant performance. Maybe that's why he only had 9 seconds lead.
If it was the whole, sorry to get scientific here, the whole torso of a bird, then
Yeah.
clearly it if it had blocked a brake duct,
Yeah.
then he wouldn't have finished. The brakes are so on the edge, and
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
he wouldn't have finished.
Yeah.
Or they would have had to pit stop him, and then someone would have to,
Move it.
get out. But if it's
the work
only the wing,
experience.
if it's only the wing,
Yeah.
section of the wing, or
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, how specific do you want to get?
no.
here?
I'm just curious. I'm just curious because
Or if it was,
that really could have caused him
beak.
problems.
I mean, if you're going to hit a bird, and like Ted said, and the bird's gone into lots of important parts of the car that's going to make it either overheat or whatever it is, especially with the brakes that
Yeah. Yeah.
tend
You're
to
not finishing
overheat
the
in
race.
Canada.
Yeah.
You're either
Yeah,
got to
you're
pit or not. So it must have only been the tip of the wing or something that really got real damage into the car. But I didn't look at that picture, so I can't help you there.
Okay.
So
Well,
Yes.
maybe
we'll come back to you on that one.
maybe
We'll ask
don't.
a few
Maybe-
people in Austria.
Maybe Giampiero Lambiase can be more empathetic as to the fate of the bird.
Yes. It
Max
is
can say, "I've hit a bird." Right?
Perhaps he is an animal lover.
Maybe he's an animal lover. Maybe that would come. Oh, Max. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's Max. That's horrible. I'm so sorry for the bird.
Yeah. Didn't give an inch to do
R.I.P.
yesterday.
The bird.
GP.
Max would have said, I've just hit a bird. GP. Right. What are you telling me for?
Yeah.
Right, Mr. Empathy. Sorry, I shouldn't go on about that.
They've got a great relationship, those two, though, haven't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't got a great relationship with GP.
get
Yeah, he did. I wouldn't say he took warmly to you.
Mr. Empathy.
You do get the two halves of Max on the radio, don't you? You do get like his sort of I'm moaning about lots of things, and GP goes, okay,
shut
right.
up.
Yeah.
And then you get the other one where he's laughing about knocking himself out on a curb, and you think, do you really think his race engineer at that point of the race wants to think about your driver going over a curb and then laughing about it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite the flex to then crack on and win with a bird hanging out your car as well.
Definitely.
Christian does call them an old married couple. So.
Oh, does he? Yeah. So Formula Photography on Instagram has got a question, and I don't think the answer to this is a bird, but let's ask it anyway. How come Max didn't pull a 20+ second lead out like he has done at tracks in Spain or Miami? Is this the type of track, or is Canada the type of track that didn't suit Red Bull, or are the cars behind slowly getting faster? Where do you guys sit on this spectrum?
Track didn't particularly suit Red Bull because it doesn't have any fast corners, and he didn't need to.
Yeah, it's slow corners and longer straights, and the tyres were struggling for keeping any heat in them at all. So Red Bull was struggling already with that, and then the brakes were overheating as well. So you'll see throughout the race there were sort of spikes with drivers doing faster lap and then a really slow lap because they could push and then they had to like pull back on it because the car started brakes overheating and various different things not working. So I think track specific, but I also do think that we should not look down on the fact that these upgrades from Aston and Mercedes are starting to come to life. Whether that's true representation of like the actual gap between Aston Martin and Mercedes to Red Bull, I don't think so. I think that would be track specific, but I think it does also show that we are closing up a little bit on Red Bull, but I think mostly track specific.
Red Bull maybe not pushing flat out every lap, are they, as well?
No. I mean, listen, he could win. He could have won any of the races so far this year by a full lap if he'd won.
You think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a scary thought. Let's move it on.
Not for him, it's not.
Let's talk about Red Bull's achievements of getting 100 wins, because that by itself is a remarkable achievement. Only Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes and Williams are now ahead of them, and even more impressive when you think that they started the team in 2005. Horner yesterday, which had this stat up his sleeve, which I thought was quite interesting.
He's always got a stat.
He's always got a stat.
Ready.
Which you noticed he started to feed them into the team radio at the end towards Max.
Oh, he's always done that.
Yeah, it's after Crofty's job.
I think he subscribes to the same stat service that we do.
Yeah, probably. Gets on a text. But Red Bull have now won 27% of the races they've entered.
That was a great stat.
Yeah, but that does go back to there are 3,912 races per season, so it doesn't really.
Yeah. But you still have to, especially I think for them.
Hang on, no. If it's a percentage thing, then that blows my thing out of the water, doesn't it?
I didn't want to tell you.
Sorry, I'll shut up. Yeah, no, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, that's the point of percentages. Isn't it?
I was like, never mind.
Sorry, I'll shut up.
It's not just the straight man. Anyway, you've had a long day. You've had a very long day. We'll give you that one.
Sorry.
I think the fact is that the team are younger. They only started in 2005, and you can't take away the amazing job that they've done. They've really dug in, and they've had a lot of adversity come towards them. Obviously, the controversy from last year to do with the cost cap and things like that. They almost got made like the Red Bull, the villains of the, for coming into the season, and they haven't. They've ignored all of that noise and just head down, get the job done, and they've done an amazing job. And I mean, now that everyone's trying to steal their floor, I think proves everything, really, doesn't it?
And they're people.
Yes.
They've got a small amount of people going. I mean, there's a lot of movement amongst all the people, actually. There are people leaving Mercedes, there are people leaving Ferrari, people going to Ferrari, people leaving McLaren, so going to McLaren. So, yeah, there is a bit. But, yeah, they show no sign of backing off any of those achievements.
But they've stuck with consistency as well. Remember, Christian's been there for so long. He's one of the longest standing team principals on the whole grid, apart from France Toss. So I think actually Christian was there 1 year before France. So so they've kept with consistency, and they've trusted Christian and Adrian Newey, and they've made sure they've stuck and put all their eggs in that one basket and waited for this team to be as incredible as it's now become. Their resurgence, I guess, as well.
And even through the passing of Dietrich Mateschitz, and we'll talk about this probably when we get to Austria in a couple of weeks' time. First race at the Red Bull Ring that he put so much money into and refurbished and everything, and first race since Dietrich Mateschitz has not been in charge. Even since the transformation to Mark Mateschitz, who's now in charge of the whole thing, and his three deputies. There's one person in charge of Red Bull production, one in charge of finance, and then a chap called Oliver Mintzlaff, who's in charge of the sporting and marketing things that Red Bull do. Operations, which includes AlphaTauri and Red Bull Racing.
Yeah.
So even through the Mintzlaff era, Mintzlaff realizes that they're doing something right. What Mintzlaff might have suggestion to change is the team who are now last in the constructors since Williams and Alex Albon's P7, which is AlphaTauri.
Yeah.
And he'll think about this. What are we doing with a team that's first and last?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah,
there?
we're not feeding juniors anymore necessarily through AlphaTauri into the Red Bull team. I just want to, because it's 100 wins for Red Bull, and I think it's quite a nice opportunity to look back at the history of Red Bull. And Ted, I want to go back to 2005 when they first started.
Yes.
James Blunt released You're Beautiful.
Right.
Spent 6 weeks at number one.
He was number one, yeah.
Yeah. Where was Ted Kravitz in 2005?
I'll tell you where I was. I was in 2004, I was in a passport queue at Milan's Linate Airport at Monza. And behind me in the passport queue was this guy, about 5'7", sort of ginger hair. And I recognised him. I knew him because, I know my stuff. as the F3000 team boss of Arden, who ran various people with a bit of Red Bull signage, Christian Horner. I knew he ran it with his dad. Did I say ginger hair?
I did hear ginger hair.
Okay, I was trying to desperately think it was ginger. I think he's probably...
He's got slightly ginger hair.
He can go strawberry blonde, maybe, yeah, but he's more... I would just say brown.
Well, I'd say... Well, he's a bit... I don't want to get into specifics, but he's a bit darker than
I'm often called
Matt.
strawberry blonde.
Okay, so you're definitely strawberry blonde.
But he's a bit darker than...
We're going to agree to disagree on this one.
I can't believe we're getting nailed down to that specific detail of my story.
Sorry.
Anyway,
go on. You saw him
Christian
in the queue.
Horner. I didn't mention the dodgy leather jacket he was wearing. Actually, I can't remember that detail. He wasn't.
Can't remember what colour his hair is.
Well, I know what colour his hair is. It's a bit more grey now. The reason I know is because he's the same age as me.
Okay.
That's a depressing thought, isn't it?
No.
He's head of a Grand Prix team that's won 100 Grand Prix, and he's how many World Championships?
How many World Championships have you
And
won,
I'm sitting
Ted?
here in a
Free
t-shirt
t-shirt.
bought for me by a racing driver. I didn't even pay myself. Right, sorry. So behind me was Christian Horner, boss of the Arden Formula
Yes.
3000 team.
Yeah.
And
Famously
we struck
ginger.
up. We struck up a conversation, and he said, "Yeah, I'm actually in Formula One next year. I'm going to be a team boss of a team boss." And I was like, "Are you? Okay, well done." Really? You're my age. Like, you know, and back
very
then
young.
we were...
So you would have been 30?
We were 30, 30, no,
Yeah.
32, 31, 32?
He was 31 in
32.
2004, I think, yes.
Yeah, because we were born in
Yeah.
1974, 1973,
Yeah.
me and him. So, yeah, he would have been 30, 31. I was like, okay, right, well, you know, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my turn for the passport, is it? Right, okay. That was my memory of 2004,
Fine.
2005.
Yeah. Claire, what about what Red Bull have kind of done for Formula One?
I think Red Bull we've seen such a massive change in the Formula One paddock over the last, I would say, 5 years even, with the introduction of Drive to Survive and things like that, and in general the audience getting much younger, and also plenty more women and other people watching it as well. It's not just specifically for men anymore, which is why we love it. I think Red Bull have always kept people on their toes in a very different way. They don't maybe do things as traditionally as the rest of the teams, and they've made other teams maybe question what they're doing and up their game and things like that. I think they just add a bit of spice. I think they've just got a bit of spice about them, and they're a bit different from, you know, a team like Ferrari, who keep themselves a lot, and, you know, they're now branching out a bit more on social media and things, whereas Red Bull, the Red Bull brand in general is kind of cool anyway. It's all the surfers and the snowboarders and things like that. So to bring that into Formula One, I think did breathe a new different life into the paddock.
When you learned that Christian Horner was going to become a Formula One team principal, did you ever...
After they bought it from Jaguar Racing.
After they bought it from Jaguar. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams they would go on to get 100 Formula One wins in the time it's taken?
I think I was thinking more about how long this passport queue is. Yeah. No, I mean, it hadn't occurred to me, but he was clearly a guy who was smart, and for him to have the trust of Dietrich Mateschitz at 31, 32, 33, knew, and Dietrich Mateschitz is a clever man, was a clever man. I kind of thought and knew that it would be on the right track. It was when he got Adrian Newey that everybody said, okay, this team and this guy is going to go somewhere.
And 200th win for Adrian Newey as well.
Yep.
Claire, what do you think? I mean, it's kind of an obvious question, but how valuable is Adrian Newey to Red Bull Racing?
I mean, it was interesting actually. I heard in an interview. Who was doing the interview? Karun, maybe, I can't remember who did the interview.
Yes, Karun did it on Sunday. Yeah.
And he was speaking to Adrian Newey, and what I found really it took me back a bit when he said, I'm counting my days down rather than up now to when I'm going to leave.
That was a strange comment, wasn't it?
I heard it and I was like, a Formula One world of Red Bull without Adrian Newey, what does that look like? And so for me, I was like, well, I don't know what that would look like, because he's been so integral to their success and the design and the concept of the car, and being... especially this season, and last season, thinking outside of the box in terms of what they were doing. You just have to look at the pictures of the Monaco floor compared to the Williams floor. I don't know if you've seen those two comparisons, but it's incredible, the detail of that floor compared to the Williams floor. And you cannot take it away from Adrian Newey that he had so much to do with that. And for me to even think, goodness, what does Red Bull look like without Adrian Newey if his days are going down rather than up? A lot is the answer to your question. He's had a lot to do with everything, and he is, integral to how the team moves forward. But you'll always see him on the grid, won't you? Checking out other cars. He's always checking the rear of other cars, and suddenly you see all the snappers around him going, "Oh, what's he taking from that one?" But he's always inquisitive and he's always looking. But I think it would be, a huge loss when we lose him.
Yeah, something that I always think about Adrian Newey is something he said at McLaren actually a while ago. He says, as a creative person. And I thought, well, you're an engineer, but I suppose you are a creative person. I always worry about where the next creative impulse is going to come from. And much like us, Matthew, thinking about what features we're going to put in the next week's show in our 3,855th race per season. Yeah. We do think about sometimes where the next creative impulse is going to come from, with your running order there. And I like that from Adrian Newey, is that he does wonder, where is that? And he's thinking, I hope that doesn't dry up. That I don't have a thought about that brake duct, the seagull-proof brake duct. Yeah. And, I'm going to design that next week.
Yeah, you probably will, actually.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah. Be straight. I mean, he's famous, isn't he, for drawing with a pencil? That's kind of, in an age of technology and computer-aided design, him and his pencil are kind of synonymous and whatever in Formula One. So
which I think is good, because you can get tied. Not that I know anything about doing my own CFD, but apparently there are shapes that you can do and ideas that you can have which are easier drawn on a drawing board with a pencil and some slide curve rulers. But what he does then is give those drawings to a trusted lieutenant who then puts them into CAD, computer-aided design. So it does get into the computer at one point.
Yes.
Someone was taking photos of it and
not
tracing
soaring
it
carbon
back.
fibre, are they, at Red Bull headquarters? No. Well, look, very good. Okay, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully Adrian Newey is around for more time to come. Let's move it on to talk about something which I know you were quite interesting on after the race and during the race yesterday, was Lando Norris and his unsportsmanlike behaviour. Sinvoltron on Instagram would like to know, what does unsportsmanlike behaviour mean, and what did Lando do to warrant it?
Okay, right, let's clear this up, because I have some new news from the FIA as to why this was. So I believe, and if you look at your sporting regulations that I know you all have saved on your computers and phones, readily available while you're watching the race, and go to Article 56, which I think is safety cars, or is it 55, and go to 55.5, and it says no car, it's sort of catch-all phrase for doing what Lando did, which is that no car can be driven unnecessarily slowly under a safety car. Now, in previous years, if, so what Lando was trying to do was, when cars are running 1-2 on the road in the same team, sorry, to make that clear, and they want both to pit, then it doesn't make any sense for them to follow each other around very closely, come into the pits together, one guy gets serviced, comes out, while the other guy waits and loses loads of time. For two reasons. First of all, that other guy loses loads of time. Secondly, he blocks the other driver downstream in the pit lane, their pit box, so it's just not practical. And thirdly, it doesn't give the mechanics chance to get the old tyres out of the way and get the new tyres in. So there's many reasons, 3 reasons, why you don't come in line astern if you're running 11th and 12th, I think they were at the time, on 9th and 10th. So Lando dropped back a bit to allow himself a bit of time for Oscar to come in, get serviced. I think it was that way around. So that he wouldn't block anybody. So there's no 10 car lengths. That's not the rule. That's only for the leader. And it's driving unnecessarily slowly. But the reason the FIA did Lando under the sporting code on unsportsmanlike behaviour is that they felt this was done in such a way as to disadvantage the people behind him, and in a sort of unfair sporting way. They gave a precedent for Giancarlo Fisichella, I think, in 2005, when this was last done.
Straight away, someone was there
saying, well, we did this some almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago, with Fissy, remember him? And so they felt it was done in a way that they would rather, and I think it was the steward's choice, to do Lando for unsportsmanlike behaviour rather than a breach of 55.5, which was going unnecessarily slowly.
Would both have been the same penalty?
I I don't know.
Maybe.
It's up to the stewards to
Yeah,
decide
okay,
what the
fine.
penalty is.
Fine.
But if you're guilty, I think that was my question in the race. I was like, well, why not do him for going unnecessarily slowly, which he was, to gain a competitive advantage? The FIA say, well, he was gaining a competitive advantage in such a way that was detrimental to the principle of sporting fairness in Formula One, and they want to crack down on it. So I think it was laying somewhat of a marker in the sand, even though it would probably have amounted to the same penalty.
What do you think, Claire? What was your reaction when you saw unsportsmanlike behaviour in the pop-up on the graphic?
My first reaction was, why are we still calling it unsportsman? It should just be unsporting, because women drive too. Was my first thought. My second thought was, because I didn't really understand what was. I was like, I haven't heard that. And then I was racking my brains thinking, have I heard that phrase before being used in recent times? And it's kind of got covered by, sometimes there's lots of words you get from when we get the documents that come through of the reason for why they've been given something, and sometimes you skim over the certain bit to see how 5 second or whatever it is. So I thought, well, maybe I just missed the fact that someone's had this before, and then I think it took some time for everyone to kind of explain it on broadcast and things like that for exactly what it was, and I agree with you. Just give the penalty for what it was. We all saw that it was for, not impeding, but it was for slowing down other people, and I guess sort of impeding. But there is a specific rule for it, so use the specific rule for it for the penalty. Would be my thought.
And note that it was unsportsperson-like or sporting.
Yes, that's Because Lando's reaction was, well, hang on, loads of other people have backed up, and so as not to to have potentially satisfied the tolerances for driving unnecessarily slowly or not driving unnecessarily slowly, but to give themselves a bit of a margin. And Lando could have argued, if it had gone to a hearing after the race, that he just didn't want to inconvenience Alfa Romeo's Sauber, who were behind them in... yes, they are. It's Sauber who are behind McLaren in the pit box. And if they were going to bring in Joe or Bottas, then he didn't want to be there waiting, blocking their way. So.
I don't know if he had an excuse. To be honest, the excuse doesn't really matter. It happened, and you can tell that he slowed down on track. So that's sort of like, okay, you've got to take your penalty.
And his excuse that loads of other people doing it doesn't matter either.
Not an excuse, But it does sort of make you kind of go, do you remember when Steiner was talking about having consistent stewards in Spain off the back of an incident that happened in Monaco? And it's that question again of the inconsistency in terms of maybe how some of the penalties come through. It's never the same. And I remember seeing something else of someone saying, well, what about the Hamilton and Alonso in the pit lane? That was quite close. Why didn't that one get a penalty? And actually it wasn't as close as when you saw it again and things like that.
Camera was...
Yeah,
and
you were in the pit lane. How...
I didn't see it because I was down at McLaren, but Alonso did have to... I think he did have to brake.
Yeah, he was straight on the radio, wasn't he? So...
Anyway, no, you're right. But also, talk about Gunther Steiner. When Gunther brought it up after Monaco, he was then penalised. He was censured.
He was
censured by the FIA for speaking out about it in a kind of misunderstanding of the word layman.
Layman was what they
didn't like about it. So McLaren have learnt from that, and McLaren were very keen not to say anything about sportsmanlike, about the Lando penalty, lest they get a reprimand from the FIA. So teams are terrified of speaking out.
Will Joseph said we'll talk about it after.
It's like, And is that healthy?
Andrea Stella did talk about it afterwards, I think, briefly, but I don't think it was anything like we're going to take it up with the FIA.
And if the teams aren't feeling like they can say anything about the FIA without getting called before the stewards themselves for afters, like Gunther was, then is it incumbent for the media to ask the questions? I suppose it is.
All right, before we go, we must talk about the news last week that the W Series has entered administration after failing to secure funding to continue. You'll of course remember that in 2022, the championship ended 3 races early. Now, Claire and Ted, you've both worked on the championship. Disappointing news.
We were founding media
were you?
people.
We
were founding media people.
So there you go. So, I mean, tell me your reaction, Claire. First of all, what was your reaction when you heard the news?
Disappointment, but not surprising at this point because we've heard everything that's been going on. I actually heard it through one of the drivers who I've been very lucky to stay in contact with. You know, they've got some great drivers in that championship. It's disappointing, but we mustn't forget what W Series has done for women in motorsport and for just letting people see that women can be on track as well. It was a lot of, if you remember the beginning, there was a lot of controversy that came from, you know, segregation of the two women and the you know, the women on one side and the men on one side. And that wasn't what it was about. It was about showing women's faces in the paddock. It was about really explaining to people that women are talented. They just need to have the same steps up that the men have, whether that's to do with sponsorship, funding, you know, just people giving them a chance. And W Series has been integral in helping women become in the limelight and become racing drivers in their own right. You know, you look at Jamie Chadwick, you know, obviously she's won the championship a couple of times and she's out racing it in the Indy Lights now. You know, Abby Pulling, you know, we've got F1 Academy now, which would never have happened. Let's remember that would not have happened without W Series. I truly believe that because it gave everyone a reason to say, you know, we need to support people in motorsport. And for me, W Series has done what it set out to do, which was give women a safe space to be in motorsport. And the fact that, you know, things like Drive to Survive has allowed more women to be part of motorsport, to then see women involved in it as well is just so different. Obviously, we're waiting to see Formula One to have, you know, more women involved in that. But we are seeing, you know, Naomi, part of your team. She is incredible at what she does, and she got that chance because she was showcased in W Series.
Yeah.
And Alice Powell, she's on Channel 4 now. You know, that there's all these people that we had never have heard from before. But if anything, it shows as well, W Series, it shows how much we still have to do. If you look at the rules and regulations of Formula One and the language that is used, it's only ever referred to a driver as he. So
sportsmanlike behaviour.
Sportsmanlike behaviour.
Literally this weekend.
From my understanding and my reading, I can't find one mention of woman or her in any of those regulations. It's a really easy fix, and it's not just for women. It's for non-binary. It's for, you know, for lots of different people out there to not have to feel it's just a he they're speaking to. You know, him coming into the pit lane or whatever it is. They also mention cameraman. You know, camera person. It's not hard to just make it more inclusive. So I think there are lots of things we still need to do, but W Series helped really take a massive step for women, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And let's, you know, the F1 Academy thing at the moment is, as you say, wouldn't have happened without W Series, is carrying on and is providing that springboard, I guess, for female talent to come in. But let's not forget, F1 Academy is needs €150,000 from each driver.
Yeah.
And that another €150,000 is matched from Formula One into the racing teams, and that enables them to go racing. W Series was free for anybody who was good enough, any driver who was good enough to enter. Not only was it free, it paid prize money.
Yeah.
It was a paid job, and all you had to do as a driver, whether you're Bruna Tomaselli from Brazil or Bianca Bustamante from the Philippines, she's from
Filipinos, yeah.
Was to get yourself to your local international airport, Sao Paulo or Manila or wherever, and W Series would fly you to the races.
Yeah.
You know, which is a big thing, and they'd pay you, so you'd get prize money for winning, which Jamie Chadwick did, of course, those 3 times, and then down to participation money and all your meals and all of that. So that's a key difference, and it's one of opportunity. And that was as well as the things that, you know, I mean, I got involved with W Series at the beginning because they were good people, you know, Catherine Von Muir and her team there. And it was nice to work with good people like yourself and everybody, you know, on the TV side. And it was it was a good team, and it was good people, and I believed in it. And it was that opportunity of giving people like Alice Powell, who'd done very well in her previous career, had fallen out because she couldn't afford to keep going, like Jess Hawkins, who didn't have the money to keep going, like Abby Eaton, who'd embarked on another career doing the stunt driving for the Grand Tour, you know, but wanted to get back into single seater, for Fabian involve end. You know, for Emma Kimmerleinen, who'd left motorsport, started a family, came back in, was absolutely top draw. Miki Koyama from Japan, who'd been backed by Honda but had sort of fallen out. You know, there are all these amazing stories of how these incredible women racing drivers hadn't quite got the breaks that maybe some male counterparts would have been able to.
Yeah.
And W Series gave them the opportunity to get in there and show what they could do. You know, and that was just what I think, you know, and the youngsters, Abby Pulling.
Yeah.
Now, Abby Pulling can afford to do the F1 Academy because Alpine are sponsoring her and she's got backing. So what we need, and this was a question I asked Lewis Hamilton, because Lewis Hamilton, to my almost certain knowledge, was the only driver who bothered to come down to the W Series paddock.
Yeah, he did.
I don't think any of the others did.
Not,
I can't
not
think
to my
of,
knowledge.
not to
There
my
was,
knowledge.
yeah.
And I asked him on Thursday, what he felt still needed to be done to continue the work or to get of W Series. And, you know, he was sort of looking at companies coming in, and I don't think W Series were too far away. I don't think you're talking about tens of millions of pounds that W Series fell short by. It was not, certainly not multiple tens of millions.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of F1 sponsorships and stuff that's going on, the amount of money that's in F1 at the moment, it wouldn't have been much for one of the sponsors or somebody to have thrown W Series the lifeline. And maybe in administration it might yet still. We don't know. Dave Ryan's still got the cars. You know, the cars are available. They could through the administration process. I know the administrators have talked about how they want to keep it going as a going concern, if at all possible. Maybe it could still carry on, but there wasn't too much money that was still needed. And Lewis was talking about, look, there just needs to be this sort of commitment. You know, put your money where your mouth is. All these people who want to carry on the cause of female drivers in F1. And, you know, maybe it'll take 5 years, maybe it'll take 10 years. But, you know, we will get a female Formula 1 driver.
We need to stop putting a time scale on it, because that's not how it works. Because it starts from the grassroots. It starts from the very bottom, and it also starts from the very top. The mindset and the change of how we get more people that are not just males into motorsport. That has to come from both the bottom and the top, because the top people are giving the people at the bottom the money, and then the grassroots is why we get, you know, people coming through in a different way. It made women more competitive and less like a joke, you know, because so many people in sport like to throw around the word princess. You know, when it was the other day I heard a sports person call another sports person princess, and it's like, well, how is that an insult? You know, that's just a woman, you know. So it's all about changing this language and things like that. And I think W Series was really integral in being part of that change that we've seen. And hopefully it's waking people up and making them realize that they don't only just know about motorsport. They can race, they can be pundits, they can be commentators, they can change this sport. There's enough room for everybody to be involved in this sport, and it was just about changing those mindsets.
Yeah, and actually to that point, it's not just about the drivers.
No.
It's about all the girls that would have seen the W Series, put it on TV, watched it at the races, and might then, you're right, go on to be journalists or go on to be camera operatives or you know, and anything within the Formula One sphere, managers. You know, there's so many jobs in Formula One, and the legacy of W Series might only become clear in 5 years' time or 10 years' time when people say, "Oh yeah, I watched W Series that year and I saw it and I wanted
still
to
remember
do
it."
that."
Yeah.
If girls and women can't see it happening, why would they try and be it?
Yeah.
Abby Eaton made the point, I think, this weekend on her social media, which is saying she's still now, even though W Series hasn't raced for almost a year, has young girls coming up to her and saying, "Oh, you know, you were the one, I saw you racing, and I didn't know that women could be racing drivers." My own daughters watched it and said, "Oh, right."
And why
is that can they be racing drivers?
It's why it's so
My
important.
4-year-old watched it and was like, I didn't know. She didn't know.
Yeah.
It's so, this is the thing. It's so important. That's why these things like the regulations of just saying he need to be changed, because if you're not making it a welcoming place for women and that paddock is not safe for women to come into, why would they bother? As a written journalist, there are so few of us that are women, to the point where I remember we came into a press conference with Mercedes once, and Lewis looked at me and he looked around the room and he went, "Where are all the women?" And I was like, I keep asking this question, you know, and it's obvious. It's me and a bunch of blokes.
It's pretty shocking, actually. I mean, there's Rebecca Clancy from the Times.
Yes.
And yourself, and
Yeah, there's a few others that kind of dip in and
Celia
out.
Rule
Yeah,
from German.
from Bin.
Yeah, she's German.
Bild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the German newspaper Bild.
And there is a few that come in and
Yeah.
but more often than not,
journalists,
not
enough.
You get a couple of local
Yeah.
journos and stuff. Not enough. If you are into motorsport and you want to do it and you want to be an F1 journalist, please fight hard because you can get there.
Well, and come to Sky because we've got Natalie. We had an all-female presenting and pundit lineup and commentating lineup in Spain and almost here,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah.
When Natalie and Naomi were presenting,
Yeah.
and then it was Rachel and Naomi in the commentary box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. Well,
important.
look, progress. That's all
Yep.
we can hope for. And we might yet see the legacy of W Series evolve. That's all we've got time for. But thank you very much for your company. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you,
Go get some
Matthew.
sleep. Go home and go get some sleep. Claire, you don't need sleep necessarily, but go home and sleep
I'll
anyway.
sleep anyway,
Yeah, it's free. Right, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. We'll be back next Tuesday. See you then.